Hello, everyone. Welcome back to English Conversation Studio. I'm Anna, and today we are going to learn natural daily phrases that native English speakers use all the time in real conversations. Because many learners study formal textbook English for years, but when they hear native speakers talking naturally, they suddenly feel confused because real spoken English is usually faster, shorter, more relaxed, and very different from traditional classroom sentences.
Hi everyone, I'm Alex, and today we will explore common everyday phrases that native speakers use naturally while talking to friends, coworkers, family members, and strangers, because learning these expressions can make your English sound more fluent, relaxed, confident, and much more natural during real-life communication situations.
The first phrase is, "I'm just kidding," and native speakers use this expression when they say something as a joke and want to make sure the other person understands that they are not being serious, because humor and playful conversation are very common in casual English communication.
Yes, for example, somebody might say, "Wow, you ate the entire pizza by yourself?" I'm just kidding. And this phrase helps create a friendly atmosphere because it shows the speaker is joking and not criticizing the other person seriously during the conversation.
Another very common phrase is "no worries," which people use instead of saying "it's okay" or "don't worry about it," especially in casual conversations when somebody apologizes or thanks you for something small, and you want to respond in a relaxed and friendly way.
Yes, for example, if somebody says, "Sorry, I replied late," a native speaker might naturally answer, "No worries, I was busy too," because this expression sounds calm, polite, modern, and emotionally comfortable in everyday communication.
The next phrase is "I'm down," and this expression means you agree with an idea or want to participate in an activity, especially when friends are making plans together casually and asking whether you want to join them or not. Yes, for example, if someone says, "We're thinking about watching a movie tonight," another person might answer, "Yeah, I'm down," because it sounds much more natural and conversational than saying, "Yes, I would like to participate in that activity." Another phrase native speakers use constantly is, "that makes sense," and people say this when they understand somebody's explanation, opinion, or reasoning and want to show agreement or understanding naturally during a conversation.
Exactly. For example, if somebody explains why they were late because of heavy traffic, you might respond by saying, "Yeah, that makes sense," because it sounds supportive, natural, and conversational instead of overly formal or robotic.
The phrase "I'm exhausted" is also extremely common because native speakers often use stronger emotional vocabulary instead of simple textbook words like "very tired," especially during informal conversations with friends or family members after a long day.
Yes, for example, after working many hours, somebody might say, "I'm exhausted. I just want to go home and sleep," because this phrase sounds emotional, expressive, and realistic in natural spoken English conversations.
Another natural phrase is "give me a second," and native speakers use this expression constantly when they need a short amount of time before responding, helping, finishing something, or preparing for the next action during daily interactions.
Yes, instead of saying, "Please wait for 1 minute," many native speakers simply say, "Give me a second," because it sounds smoother, faster, and much more natural in casual spoken English.
The next phrase is "I have no idea," which people use when they completely do not know the answer to something, and this expression sounds much more natural in conversation than saying "I do not know" repeatedly every time.
Exactly. For example, if somebody asks, "Do you know where Alex went?" another person might say, "Honestly, I have no idea," because this sounds realistic, conversational, and emotionally natural in daily English communication.
Another phrase you hear everywhere is "it depends," because native speakers often avoid giving direct answers immediately, especially when the answer changes depending on the situation, person, time, or circumstances being discussed. Yes, for example, if someone asks, "Is learning English difficult?" a native speaker might respond, "Well, it depends on how much you practice," because this phrase allows more flexible and thoughtful communication naturally. The phrase, "I'll figure it out," is also very common, and people use it when they are unsure about something but believe they can solve the problem, understand the situation, or find a solution eventually without needing immediate help.
Yes, for example, if somebody is confused about directions, technology, or plans, they might say, "Don't worry, I'll figure it out," because this phrase sounds confident, calm, independent, and very natural in spoken English. Another expression native speakers use constantly is "sounds good," and this phrase is commonly used when agreeing with plans, suggestions, or ideas during conversations because it feels relaxed, positive, and socially natural. Exactly. For example, if someone says, "Let's meet at 7 tomorrow," another person might simply answer, "Sounds good," because short, natural responses like this are extremely common in fluent English conversations. One important thing learners should understand is that native speakers often prefer short, emotional, relaxed expressions instead of long textbook sentences, because natural communication is usually fast, simple, and focused on comfort rather than grammatical perfection. Yes, and learners who study these kinds of real expressions begin understanding movies, podcasts, interviews, and conversations much more easily because they start recognizing the natural speaking patterns that appear constantly in everyday English communication. Another important benefit of learning native phrases is confidence, because when learners use expressions that sound natural and conversational, they begin feeling more connected to real English communication, instead of sounding overly formal, robotic, or unnatural during social interactions. Exactly. And fluency is not only about grammar or vocabulary size. It is also about rhythm, tone, expressions, reaction speed, and understanding how people actually communicate emotionally and socially in real-life situations every single day. So today we explored several natural daily phrases like "I'm just kidding," "no worries," "I'm down," "that makes sense," "I'm exhausted," and many others that native speakers use regularly during conversations. And practicing these expressions can make your English sound significantly more natural and confident. Yes, and if you repeat these phrases regularly, use them actively during conversations, and listen carefully to how native speakers use them naturally, your speaking skills, listening comprehension, and conversational confidence will improve much faster over time. If you enjoyed this lesson, please don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends, because learning natural English together makes practice more fun and motivating. And subscribe to English Conversation Studio for more fluency training, vocabulary lessons, and real-life English speaking practice every week. Thank you very much for listening and practicing with us today. See you in the next lesson, and keep using English naturally every single day.